page Kuf, that's a Kuf Bet. And there is an Inyan here where he started to talk, let me see where I'm at. Here we go. Where he started to talk about these two sets of numbers, including the SHAAR, the Ros by Moshe Rabbeinu. He started out with the number 270, which is raw, air, raw. He went back and forth with that. They finally came to the conclusion that what it is actually the number of years of our galus, and it has to do with this squeezing operation or whatever it is. He comes to the number to just Akia, simple Akia. And I found it confusing because every place that we've been reading about it, Akia is always looked at as a Rebua. But over here he says that the actual amount of time, it goes back to the just basic 21. So 21 times 10. So you have these numbers, 21, you have 10, so on and so forth. What's the problem? So let's start reading at the top, just at the top, and then we'll go into it a little bit a little bit. But not to the Inyan Rishon, ki Inyan Galus Mitzrayim Garm Yisrael Elyon, the upper Yisrael. Who's the upper Yisrael? That means in Olam Atzilus, he's talking about Zer Anpin, Shayaksach the his alim that go back and hide himself, beso the Iver Toch Ima Ilah. And we understand this concept, betlas, klila, betlas, he folds up, him makom shlitas mitzrayim paro. So he says that place where it folds up to is the place where Paro has all his power. He says klipa elyonim shebemetzah elyon. That is the, again, I'm not sure what he means by that, but he says it's the klipa, the highest, most pneumistic level of klipa that you have, and it comes from the place, let's say, so to speak, of the neck of Zer Anpin. As we know that we discussed this in some extent. Then what happened was, as a result of that, in the Daat of Zer Anpin, it's everything is folded up in that place which is in the neck. Let's just see the word. He says all that's shining here now in that place is the Revua. Okay, so we're at the Revua. So I would say Shehem Eser Pamim Dam, which the Revua we understand is a gematria of the word Dam, Shehem Gematria, which are the gematria Redu, communion Redu. Now, first of all, just looking at that offhand, how do you get from the gematria of let's see, I would have thought 1044s, which is 440, but instead he says that it's the minion of 210. V'chein koyim misper shnei galus mitzrayim redu shana, which is 210 years. Besod redu shama, go down there. Kamosha amra b'sein zeron v'racha, like the rabbis say. Now I want to look into this just a little bit more, and let me see if I got this right. Okay, so I guess so let's go from the we're on page Kuf Bet, and we'll go into the left column over here. So he says in the left column, I really could start from the beginning, but so let's start from the beginning. Let's do that. So he said, Mosayim v'eser shonim, this is the introduction of it, 210 years, shall galus Mitzrayim communion the Sarah Ekia. It's like the mini is telling us what's coming now. He says, and what I want to see is, why did he say 270? Why did he say 260? And why does he come up? Finally, how does he get to 210? Especially after that last line that we had, that these exist, that these, the Oros exist in the form of a Revua, which is really the Kitzonius of it. So that's what they suck off of. And then how did he get to 210? So he said, V'nasa the Inyan Rishon. So going on, Zehu Inyan Sivas Galus Mitzrayim. This is why we actually went into Galus Mitzrayim. Now, because to me, learning this, a lot of details and a lot of secrets, but I'm not sure that I understand how it all fits together. So let's read what he says a little bit more. He says, so he says, Okay, Lafi Sharoy Shalo Yimshach Shefarav Minagadusha ala Klipos. We don't want that to happen. Vatam Husha Garm Yisrael Elyon. That is the Mochin, the godless. That's what he calls the Israel Elyon, which is also known as Zer Anpin. Yachsa the his or that I got at Zer Anpin. He says the Mochin, the godless that are inside of Zer Anpin. Yachsa the his alam besod ha'iver toch imayilor. They go back into the embryonic stage. We're going on in the black print. Bibichinis tlas klila betlas. V'nishach bezer anpen rak mochin the iver, and that he has all he has is the smallest type of mochin. Shahu tachlis in mihut shalo, which is ultimately his ultimate diminishment. As we talked about this already. He says. B'sham b'meitza elyon shebegorn keneged the das. So das, the das elyon is located in Zer Anpin, in his neck. He's a makom shlitas mitzrayim b'paro. That's where they get off. So what is this? Is the upper concept of Zer Anpin has a narrow spot, and that narrow spot is where the flow of light through Zer Anpin coming in our direction gets interrupted here. So he's a good that's lenum going on. Now the mochin left Zer Anpin. All that really remains in Zer Anpin. Let's get the words right. He says, "Bekol das the Zer Anpin." All of his das, all that's left is the levushim. So he says, "Halevushim the godless akulula belevush hanimshak elachasadim v'chakavuro." So this is levush. So he says, "Levushim the godless" really has to do with, as we said, the levush that covers over the 5 gavuros and the 5 chasadim. So shebedas, which are the das that were delivered into that das from the Yisod of Ima. So all that's there is really chitzonius, revuos. Shehem asara ekya berevua, like we said like that. And he shows you how the revua goes. Shehem gematria eser pamim dam, which is 440. Should be hislav shusach bezer anpen, because here's what he says. He says, when you have the upper, the kitzonius of the upper, which is a revua, when it comes into the lower, which is Zeranpen, from Ima, it says it turns into a panemius. The panemius is not the revua, but in fact it's just the havaya, the basic havaya. Or basic, in this case, is an akia. So, they become peshutim. V'az heim called asar ayachad begematria. So now they're all there together in the gematria, because even though there were ravua inside of Zer Anpin, they're back to the Ekia again. So it's from, I guess he means from that period of time, that 200, that those Ekias, which are now Ekias, there is still an external part to them, which is the revua, which is what they're the kali are eating, are sucking, nursing from, feeding from. That's right. Besod Mash Yaakov Lebonov Rudu Shama, go down there. So Rudu means is that you're going to have run into you're going to convert Chitzonius into Panemius over there, Shama. So what he wants to do is to announce to them that that's letting them know that down there it's going to take 210 years to get out. He says that was a hint to that. So I'm going on with this light print, with the columns. Batam Adavar Hashanim Shalgalim Mitzrayim Heim Davka Kamizbach of Shemos Ekia, who has to be only the Ekia. So he says this is how you could feel this out. This also, if you look at these letters, let's go back. Who kihine eser shemos shal Ekia? You take 10 times Ekia. He said b'milua b'mula, but you have to take the milui of the milui. Yesh b'kol milui amechem besod milui hamilui, which is zach osius, which is 20. The milui has 27 letters of akia, as we know. This we have, etc. So just a little bit more here into detail and try to find out how we got to this number 27. What does it have to do with? We already decided that it's 210 years. So why are we going that? So he said, "V'hine eser pamim zach," comes to the number Haim Masayim v'Shivim b'gematria air, which is gematria of air. Now, air could mean like arousal or something like that, but at any rate, it's the gematria of 270. So he says, "Kishmo shel Bechor Yehuda." It's like it's that name. Ve'elan the Tzutzah shall carry the Anav Risha Kishayotzacha that it's signing the Lakha Air Osius Shebudusha. Let's go over this one again. He says, these Netzutzos shall carry. They came from out of Arisha. When they left, in other words, they didn't have the proper, without a Yichud. He said they were spilled without a Yitzon, and they fell into the Yitzonim. Lakol air Osius Shebegedusha, that the Yitzonim took the 270 letters of Kedusha, and turned them into raw. Besod v'yehi air raw. So here back to the idea of air and raw, and this all has to do with the concept of shvichas zera levatala. Now I would say, just between you and me, is that this is a concept that, especially in Litvish circles, you don't talk about it. So this is not talked about. So here he's saying that this is the root of Pesach. This is the whole root of Pesach, at least up to this point. We said that before, and also the person that's involved in that. So therefore, we're in a state, if those nitzutzos of those of that carry is within us at this time, and it needs a tremendous tikkun. This is really, a reversal, I think, in the common way of thinking. So he said that it really puts such a tremendous emphasis on the fact of shvichas zera levatala. V'chein hamotzia nikrach ra kevin shenosin kezecha yenika the klipas of nikroim ra. V'chein nizbar shachakoyach sheniten leMitzrayim lehishtaava b'bnei Yisrael mishum sheklipas Mitzrayim yonekas b'makom adas, because that's I'm not sure exactly what this means. How is it that their klipa but this is what he's saying. He said their klipa is directly directed at das. Now we have to think about what it means to be das. They're using the das, the concept of the das, to build what they want to build, or because that's what das does. Das is a builder. So he's remembered because that, in that das, is where this built stuff is. So he tells the reason why they've zoned in on the das. Because the das is the place where the carry takes place. And then once again we're back to the neshamas that went to Mitzrayim. So that's the number 270. So 270 is actually not a different calculation as we have with Moshe Rabbeinu now. But it's going to be, instead, it's going to have to be with the carry that comes out of the das draws this klipa to it. It draws this darkness to it. Okay, anyway. Shnos misbar galus b'tzrayim heim teluyim b'shem akia. So we said that every really thing has to do the amount of time that is going to be there. It's like akia is dormant, going dormant in there, or what? Shucha halavush the gadlu shal hachasad v'gavura. So what we're talking about, asher b'makom b'das shal zer anpin. That's what's in the das zer anpin. So I'm wondering, just right, but now, so if this, what happened to the ekiyas that, let's say, theoretically were inside a zer anpin, now that they've left, that is, now they're coming back inside. I'm a little confused here. Okay, let's go on. Because from their 10 acharaims, that is what is the unique over there of his lavsham b'zer anpin, when they're all inside a zer anpin, heim na'asit b'shutim, but in their zer anpin they become b'shutim. Now, I think I'm going to go back. Let me just see if we can get away from this. I really wanted to explore what this number 270 was about, and how it is that actually that is related to the Shvik Zervatolim. Okay, so now we're on the words Amnam, up above. So Amnam, he said, Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Sholem B'Marasneh. So you're supposed to go through this. As he looked at the burning bush, Shehu Be'inyan Galas Mitzrayim. So a little bit there, what that burning book has to do with the Galas Mitzrayim. I'm not sure what the connection is. Let me see. Ben Yitzgal Mitzrayim, Shelo Higia Daim Zaman the Geula. Okay, so it has to do with the time of the Galas and Mitzrayim. There's more to this. They could be probably mined out of this, but I want to keep going. So he says, Ahoy Choshev ki Kevin Sheyisrael Sheba'osach Ador Garmo El Histalkus. He said, because why? I didn't see that they did anything other than that it was Mizgagal. So he says they caused Histalkus Hadas, that the upper Das will leave. That is the Mochin de Gadlus. The Mochin will leave. Shem Esech of Abayim Shechel Chachamisha Chasadim, there are 10 Chabayas. The Chasadim and the Gevuros, there are 5 of the Chasadim and 5 of the Gevuros. Im came Hemshech of Shnecha Guluzim, so therefore the amount of time that they should be in is because the Histalkus of those Abayas, which once again are the actual essence of the Chasadim and Gevuros. He says, "Vim came Hemshech Shnei Lusam Yihya Kamisper Eser Havaya." So it should be the count. That's what's really leaving of 260. Ras. So he says, if you take the word Ras and turn it around, Kisar Ras is a gematria of 260 near Ros. So he says that it's meaning that he saw in that fire. He said that the fire represents the galus. I'm trying to understand. Fire. So we're in a galus of fire, I guess. Just a very difficult, horrible galus. He said, "V'yar Hashem ki sar l'ros." He turned aside to see. Ratzal lomer shebepi kefi ra'os sichlo shal Moshe, according to the vision in Moshe's mind. This is what Moshe saw as he saw the symbol of their galus. He saw us at 260. There would be in galus. That's the amount of time that would be in galus, which was 260 years, and that time had not arrived. So 260. So instead of focusing on the Ekyas, which we said that the Ekya, which was in Ravua form, but inside of Zer Anpin, it became an Ekya. And we say that's what was mistalik, and all that is left is Lavush of that. He's thinking, Moshe Rabbeinu was thinking that, the Gevuros themselves and the Chasadim themselves are Havayas. So that's really what leaves. So therefore, why do we go with the Ekyas? So therefore, according to their count, or the way he counts, they should be in Bagalas the 260 years. So then Hashem came along and he said to him, Ki ein kates galusa talvui b'chavayis. Said is the Ravayas that would normally be in the Das and Nistalko, they give Ella Ba'acharayim the Shemus Aki, but really think now, he says what it is the Acharayim of Ima, which is the Ravua that we talked about of Aki, the Shemus. So he says Acharayim the Shemus Aki, Shenisarach B'das Zer Anpin, but then it's left over the Zer of the Das and Zer Anpin. He said that was what was supposed to go into Zer Anpin and become an Aki. But it didn't. So he said, but instead it's in the Das Zer Anpin, and the Klipos are, this area of mind, are using that. So we're trying to think about the pyramids and other things that the Egyptians used to make such perfection in certain ways. Zer Anpin, that is really what's feeding the Revuas, or what's feeding in this Galus. Misbar Makom Yonikazim. So according to the count of the times that they're feeding off of it, Kach Hemshech Misbar Shnei Memshalto V'Hem, and how long is that amount of time that they're able to feed off of the Acharayim's here. It's 210 years until we can bring back the actual Ekia. So it would be reduced Shana Kenisker V'Zechel B'Masha Amar HaKasev V'Yomer Kol Somar L'Bnei Yisrael. So you should say to the Levei Devi Ekia Sholachani Ekia Aleichem. It's Ekia coming. Ekia is going to be in your midst. There's going to be a revelation of Ekia. Shalached the Chorus Ki Acharayim Shal Ekia Heim Mizgalim Ata. This is a teacher that's what's going to be, but right now, what's actually being manifest is the Acharayim. And that's where the bad guys are, She'em Redu Shana, which is those 210 years, that the Ekiyas have to be shut up. So therefore, we understand that that's the time of their Gula. Okay, moving on. Let me get a little drink here. So he says like this. He said, "V'hinei parach rasha mekasher gadohoya, v'ein kamoho, v'kamosha amas zechon ha'baracha." Like the rabbi said, "V'yadach b'chachmaso histalku zer anpen hakadosh." Now this sounds a lot like Purim. Just a storyline. He could see v'yadach b'chachmaso histalku zer anpen hakadosh. He saw the mochin zer anpen go back. V'chazaras the konev so the iver to Ima law, and that it actually folded itself up into Ima law and back into embryonic state. Raki ein zer anpen anikra shem avaya, who is avaya? Mashgich v'shalek az ba'olam. So then that closed up, that he folded himself up. He has no power in the world. V'lechein b'bo Moshe. So therefore, when Moshe came, it's interesting to try to sort this out. So therefore, when he thought about that, he said, forget about it. He's gone. He says, I don't know Hashem. This is Lashon Das. So he said, Lo Yadate is Hashem. Hashem is not in the place of Das. So he saw that the klipa, this upper klipa. And I guess he means by upper is that normally we think of the klipa from the chaz of lamata. That's what I think. So he's saying here that there is a klipa also that Paro uses to be able to attach itself to that source of das. So he's like Rocky unikas klipas al yona shaletis alav al Paro lo choisi yonekas b'sham. It wasn't able to. The words here, Unikas Klipas al Yona Shaletis Alav al Paro, which is in control of Paro. Lo Chosi Yonekas B'Sham, it wasn't feeding off of that. B'Zecha Lo Yidati, this is what I mean, Hashem. So who Zer Anpen Anikbrach of Avaya Kanaita. Now that was a little bit hard to understand. I'm going on now. Gam Amr Mi Hashem Asher Eshme Bekolo. So then he starts like this. Who is this Hashem that I should be able to listen to his voice? Ratza Lomer Ki Necha Bezer Anpin Anikra Chavaya. That's the Chavaya we're talking about. Asher Ata Chababel B'Shlichuso Alai. That was now you're coming as his emissary, so to speak, to me. Heichon Hu. Where is he? Find him. Heichon Hu. Kadei Eshme Bekolo. That I should be able to listen to what he's got to say. But he's gone. His hashgacha, his action in this world, his relationship to this world is left, and niknab so the ivor, and it's now shut up back where it came from, turned tail and ran. There's a pasuk over the pasuk v'yachazek Hashem eslev paro. So wait a minute, it's Hashem, the name Hashem itself, that actually caused the heart of Paro to harden. Why? He says, Hashem, because when he listened and he heard the name of Hashem, befeed Moshe, he didn't want to talk about it. That made him harden his heart. Because he knew through that witchcraft that he used, the Shaloh Hoya Oz Mizgala, because he wasn't going to come out. He knew that the Mochin, the godless, that would actually bring purity into the Jewish people and straighten everything out. He said they're gone. And the Elav so the Eber, and that's where they were. So Ha'umnam. So we see like this. Let me get this right. It says V'omnan. B'Shem Elokim, when we talk about the name of Elokim, Choyim Moide, so he says that he agreed that when you use the word Elokim, now that's something he understood. He didn't want to understand, or he, maybe from Paro's point of view, it was just gone. There was no reason for him to think that there would be an ekia for how the ekia means that I will be. And in other words, there's potential in here. It's like some kind of an explosive component that's inside of maybe those beepers or something like that. You don't know it's there. So, but at any rate, he admitted to that. He had no problem with that. Yosef Elohim Ya'ane as Shalom Paro. What is it, Elokim? That we have something like this. He says, Paro uses the word. Yosef uses that name. So we see that's what he does. So he understood then. The Indian, who's that? So the Indian is really like this. He has the man godless there on the Zer Anpin. So he said at the time of the greatness of Zer Anpin, Yesh lo mochin d'shem b'vayim. Okay, because that's Zer Anpin. He's manifest, and the name B'vai is manifest in him. If he Yosef is man the katnas, but at a previous time, before godless, he has mochin the godless, o bisman ha'ivor, whereas it's even smaller mochin. So let's say awareness that, using some of Rabbi Memran's ideas of being able to realize how Hashem is really in front of you or with you all the time. If you could realize that, that would be Mocha the godless. V'yos bismana katas, though, you don't see so much. You're involved more in physicality, or bismana ivor. Listen, I don't know what that time is that you really, really withdraw. Yesh lo mochin the Elokim, but there are mochin there. The chavayas are gone, but there are mochin. Those mochin are mochin the Elokim. Before it's later, we talked about there before in the Yitzchayim. He said, so let's take Zer Anpin, and he's in that secret of Ivor. He had mochin them of Elokim, but he didn't have mochin Havai. So don't think he didn't have mochin, but he had different kind of mochin. So therefore, that's why, since that was not around, he understood Elokim. He understood that was the decision maker, is Elokim, the ultimate judge. So he says the Moedeb Elokim, so he didn't see the Vaya, and he admitted that there was an Elokim. There's some higher power. He understood that. Gama Inyan, the Inyan, though, is also like this. It's not the Shlitas Achitzonim. When you start talking about the power that false ideas have, I'm using that phrase liberally, false ideas, but maybe it's false images of your mind. Because a lot of this really has to do with subjective acts that really can be subjective. Things that are subjective, they could be suggested, and they're not real. And that's what happens as our life is very short. Anyway, going on. So they get what they get a hold of, and this is general truth every place. So what they get a hold of is the dinim. That's all that was in Zer Anpin. So he said, so the reason why this is because ki shem azeh, the Elokim, mispasha bedregas rabos ad shebesof medrega alachrona, until he keeps going, developing downwards, until he gets to the final place, min ashmarim, and he says, madrega achrona, min ashmarim, he falls down into the dregs of the wine, shal yayin asher bo. So in other words, he falls down into an area with not wine anymore, just pasulos. And it comes out at their end, bechinas aklipos, because in that place where it's not wine anymore, you go through this body, you get to a place where the klipos are located. Hanikros Elohim, Elohim Acherim, which are called other gods. Kenitzker b'sabat v'shpatim, b'dav tzadivei alman aleph echalo pasuk, malach Elokim al goyim, is that Elokim is what rules goyim. That's the whole thing to think about that. is that's teva, nature, so on and so forth. That's what really rules, and go and think about just the zat, so to speak. For the Indian here could so the Indian is like has been explained. So there are 3 mochim at the time of katnas. Now this is where we have some complicated words, but maybe we can work it out. And those mochim are the mochim of the Iver. Let me see what I missed something. The katnas. No, I skipped the page. Let me see. No, it's a Indian who kumavur at Slena Kibishlosha Mochim Yesh Bizman Hakatnas. Vaha Ivor. Oh, they go together. Okay, there we are. Vahem so Shlosha Shemus Elokim. So those Mochim are 3 names of Elokim. And Misham Nechazem Klipos Mitzrayim, and from there is where the Klipos of Mitzrayim get a hold. Now, of this name Elokim. He's there. He's there at the place where the das is, and the das is been transformed into carry. That's what he's saying. He says this is the origin of where the carry is. This is where the origin of dinim is that he's talking about, and the Elokim that he's talking about. So he said, so this is the place where Paro has the ability to be able to grasp. So we're not talking about a human being. We're talking about in celestial, the world of Panemius. That is, in other words, like say, if you could get a hold of the river, or the flow of the river in some way, and divert some of it in your direction, that's Paro. He's able to get into that as a result of the fact that the sulas are this shvichas zera of the at that place. Okay, trying to make some sense out. So Shlosha Sari Paro, so that he had 3 what he called servants, maid servants. Heim Sar HaMashkin, V'Sar HaOfim, V'Sar HaTabachim. Shehem Misod Shlosha Elokim Kanizbarim, and they also all represented. There is a beer in here. I mean, we want to go into it. This is something to learn here for me. It has a drush of its own, and he says that in the SHAAR Pesukim Parshas V'Yeshiv. But I am Sham. So look over there. If you have time, go look over there. He says Haiti. He said V'Nikaz Hu Misham. Mishlosha Elokim Shlosh Amochim Elu De'iver. So where do they actually feed off of? What builds up Paro? So Paro is built up out of Elokims. So he says, and there are 3 of them. And that these you find in the Eber stage. This is why they're called other Elohims. He said, why? Ki Acherim hu begematria communion garum, because Acherim these are the God that you find the gods. He says there's 3 of them. He says the gods that you find in the garum, because Acherim means garum. He says the gods of the garum. Ki Acherim hu begematria communion garum. So garum is also the neck. This is the place that Pharaoh. It's interesting that the garum is the place of sounds. So maybe sound has a lot to do with it, we don't understand it. So anyway, communion garum, shehem begematria shlosha shemos elokem, and this karam and this pashta begarum that spread into the garum, that is once again where the mochin of katnas are now going to be found. Contrast to the mochin of godless that it could have been there, which are chavayas. Vayedehis pashtusam el madregos rabos. So since this is pashtus of the Elokim keeps going on and on. So we're going to see what he means by Madregos Rabos. Yotze mechem hashmarim b'siyum es pashtusim. At the end of the place of the destination where they're going to, there you find sigim. There you find the shmarim. There you find the klipos. V'na'aseh acherim, and they become different. A communion garon, which is this is a different kind of. Well, this is that Elokim. Communion garam shesham arashis yendikosim, because this is where they begin to feed. Shesham hu meitzer elyon, because this is the place everything gets squeezed through the neck, so to speak. Asher sham machisis Mitzrayim, which is Mitzrayim has been there, has been built up there as a result of the Shvicha Zer V'Tala, the Zer V'Tala that is found in that place. Now that's the relationship. He really established that Das is the concept of coition, and as a result of that, you're going to have the possibility from the male source that there is seed that has to be planted in that relationship. But when it's built, it just stays where it's at, doesn't go anyplace, and instead, here you have power. V'hamnam shir his pashto shem elokem hu ad shir kuf kof tzirufim sheyesh b'chakanoida. So we understand that if you have elokem, is 5 letters. So he's going to go over those letters. So he says this is 5 letters, and the number of permutations you can make out of 5 letters is 120. He called Tevis Bas Chamesh Osis because any word that has 5 letters in it, Bona Kuf Kaf Batim, it will make 120 houses. This is from the Sefer Yetzirah. Velo Hakach. So he says he's writing these things like this. Velo Hakach Serufim. So these 120 Serufim, Him Bebechinah Bedregas Kedusha. Those are all levels of Kedusha. And they begin at Zer Anpin Debria, going down through the worlds, Ad Sof Asiya, until you reach the end of Asiya, to Mavuretz later. And that's another big subject that could be interesting to look at. And there's a really big beer on that, but we're moving on. So he said, Be'idra Rabba and Daf Kuf Kol Ches, over there in the Idra. The Yasef al Kursia de Shevivim, that he is sitting on a throne of coals, hot coals. What does that mean? He says, Umishama Lamata, and from that position, going downwards. I guess that was supposed to be a reference for for Bria. Umishama Lamata, you go down from them, Hema Klipa Hanikra by the name Elohim Acherim. This is the Klipa of the neck. V'kol a klipa, he min kuf kaf tzirufim. So all of this is from the 100. Where do they get their power from? They get their power from these 120 different elokims that are located over there. The tzirufim el elo af al pi shehem kedusha gemura. Even though the elokims themselves, just a second, he says they're not kedusha. They are kedusha. They're just not mokin. They're godless. They're the mokin v'kadosh, which work in the physical actions of this world, the nature of this world. But the point is that when you have the wine on the top, which is okay, that's the alakeh, but the nature of it is that it produces shmarim, and the shmarim gather to it because it's din. I guess it goes like that. Which are the shmarim at the bottom of the wine bottle. So let's go on. So now we're talking here, we got over here. V'hine yenikas eretz Mitzrayim of Paro. Eina mekal koch, we'll call it koch. Tzerufi shem elokim. It's not in the whole 120. Why? Why not? Rak min memches tzerufim achronim shabo. Only from the lower 48. Now what is Yud and Mem? If you put them together, they make 50. Here is 48. So how do you get 48 from 50? Or is that what he's doing? So read it again. He says, Min Mem Ches Terufim Achronim Shabo, Hatuluyim B'shtei Osius Yud and Mem Min Elokim. There's the last 2 letters in the name Elokim. Kanoida. So let me get this. Yeah, Kanoida. Ki kad serufim. So this is how you see it. You actually probably see this in the Sulam Aliyah. He says kanoida ki kad serufim maskilin ba'os aleph. There are 24 serufim with os aleph. Kad serufim os lamed. Kad serufim ba'os hey. Kad serufim v'kad ba'os yud. V'kad ba'os mem. It's apparently this is really important. It's once again it's another deeper subject of why you divided it up like that, but you took each letter and you made it into one of these into a 24, because you have to get to 5 times 24, I guess, is 120. So that's where you're at. So he says, Mizbach Bekulam is once again 120 tzerufim. So that's what you actually get if you took them all. But he says, let's not focus on all of them. Let's focus just on the last two, on the tail end. So this is the secret of this idea. Who is this Hashem? That I should listen to what he has to say. Because from the power that he got from the two final letters, which are the Mem Cheserufim Achronim Shekeneged Shtei Osius Mem and Yud. Each one of them has its own 24, which makes 48. Shel Elokim, which is the last two letters of the name Elokim. He was using that, and using that he's feeding, getting all he needs out of these last two letters. So what does he need anything else for? Because like this, if they were Mizgalit, he didn't want to know about him. He doesn't want to know about it. It would be also sucking off of those or feeding off of that. But shall Elokim the Ivra Batelis Kanoida. So I think I'm mistranslating this, but Nikos min Osius Mem Yud shall Elokim the Ivra Misbatelis Kanoida. So that would wipe out that me that comes from Elokim. Ubiroso, and he says that when and seeing that it's being wiped out by the Chavaya, he says Shehoya lo oz yanika v'achiza sham osius mi shall Elokim. That's what Paro and Mitzrayim were able to do. He lo nigles Chavaya, so that he would say, and looking at like that, he only is looking at that. That's all he cares about. So therefore, he said, I don't want to buy it. I was thinking that he was going to say something else, and maybe he does in a minute. So that's what I was looking for. So now we've seen this before. So he says, why was he hit with 10 makos? That was a question. So he says, a makos min shlosha osius elu, and he takes them from the Ela, rather. So Ela are the first three letters of the name Elokim. So he takes them and he strikes them with the letters Elu Mishem Elokim. Because he really didn't have a hold of them, and he didn't really feed off of them. He fed off of the last two letters. And the question is, why the last two letters? Why not the first three letters? Why not the whole thing? But it was only the last two letters. I guess it's Shisi Ososa Elu Bekirba, so should be able to place them inside of him. What does that mean? Those three letters, Galokim. So he wanted to be hidden, but through it used those letters. That's why Kodesh Baruch Hu want to use those letters in order to smite Paro. And to join them together, take those letters, join them together with the me asher bekirba, which he has been swallowing, so to speak, metaphorically, these letters. They're inside of him. So we're going to take the Ela, and we're going to smack him and join him as a result of that, join what's inside of him with what's outside of him. Im shtei osius mi asher bekirbo shall parosh hu yonek behem, which is what he's been feeding off of. So in other words, he's been stuffing his face with the me, so to speak. So by joining them together, that is what's inside of Paro and what's outside of Paro, it creates a tremendous power. And this is a power of Din. So that's the secret of the 10 different plagues that hit Paro. So he says, don't think about this, or don't say like this. Don't wonder about this. If it's Royim, which is the head nation of all? Now, this is another subject. Rosh Arba Naros Gan Eden, so they're the head of all of the rivers. So he's saying, what's so special about Mitzrayim? I mean, there's Mitzrayim today too, still in the same place. The river's still in the same place. So he says, don't wonder that there's a reason why this place became the most powerful. Kirosh Arba Naharos Gan Eden, because the beginning, or the top, I guess it's the beginning of all the rivers that came over out of Mitzrayim, out of Gan Eden, was the Pishon. I guess that means the Nile. So I'm not sure I understood this. So he says that makes it this most special place. So let's go back. He said, how is he able to feed off of the last two letters of the name Elokim? The letters, those two letters, Mu'ulos ma'osios Ela. I guess his question is, why pick on those two letters? That was the question before. So he said, because me is something special about them. Now, me is a gematria. Okay, well, let's see what he says. The Kanisker Besava de Mishpatim. You have over this in the Zohar, over there in Mishpatim. He says, Al Pasuk mi Ela Ka'av to Ufanu. So who are these? Me Ela. Here's the Ela Ka'av to Ufanu. He's me who lamala me'elu, who is up above it like a cloud that, I don't know, flying past. Ka'av on defender. Me who lamala me'elu, what is up above, what is panimi to them, k'mavur b'sod, it's later that we have. So let me see, I don't know. Uv'ulai, and perhaps, he keneged shtei osios elu. So he introduced the idea that the two letters me are more important than the letters elu. So now what did he say? So let's go down. I have a mark on this place in the Zohar Mishpatim, which is still on page Kuf Lamed Hey, and where it says B'kavana b'savad de Mishpatim and al pasuk mi ela ka'av ta'ofana. So he says Shesham Nizbar. He says Shaha'os is me. Romezes the Bina is a reference to Bina Chanikra me. Bina is also called me. Me bara Ela. V'lezeh, so here we have our words. V'lezeh v'chol lamala me'ela, so this, we're talking about that which is higher than Ela. So he says, me is the one that creates. He says, me Romezes the Bina Chanikra is me. V'lezeh v'chol lamala me'ela, so it's a higher level than Ela. Now, Romas the Zer Anpin Akola, which is Ela, really refers to Zer Anpin in general. Sheish Kitzvos should call Echad Kolu Mashesh, which is 6 Kitzvos. Each one of them has 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Hare Shloshin Vishesh Communion Ela, that's the concept of Ela. Let's go along. Let's go on. He just wants to bring up an idea or right to the fact that Ela is on a lower plane. Which is also interesting by itself, because the me, he says, goes with Bina, but also could be that it comes down in 50 steps. I mean, I think he's going to say that now. Uvalai keneged shtei osios elu, the me, Paim Sod Commission, which is the secret of the 50 Yamim Shebein Pesach Letzeres, that is between Pesach and Letzeres. Just 1 second, just let me try to digest the thought a little bit. I'll read it again. Uvulai ki keneged shtei osios elu de me also as a gematria, hem chamishim yamim shebein Pesach Letzeres. So he says this is also going on the power of the two letters me, because me could be used as a count. V'hem so chamishim shari bina, the godless keneged chamishim the katnas. So this is really the secret of the 50 shari of bina. See, I saw something about this recently. It's almost like, I don't know, Bina unfolds itself down to 50 levels in some way. Bina, the godless, connected Hamishim, the godless. So he says there's 50 of godless, connected 50 in the godless. The Elohim Osius me, come over Ritzlano. So we have that idea also. So, going on. We're out of time? Oh, we're out of time. Okay. We are out of time, and Pesach, it comes out, is much different in Sod than you would think, as it has to do with the whole concept of the sexuality, of the libidinal drive of the human being, and how it got messed up and it is perverted. And this is a place where it needs to be Mesugan. This is Baruch Flashman, and you've been listening to the Tikkun Elevator Kolo.